I always imagined walking down the aisle in the dress of my dreams. But what I didn't imagine was my own sister trying to take that moment away from me. On my wedding day, everyone's eyes were glued to me, but the real show wasn't my entrance. It was her reaction when she realized her little scheme had just blown up in her face. Growing up, my sister, Danielle, and I couldn't have been more different. I was the quiet one, bookish, sensitive, the kind of girl who found comfort in sketching in notebooks and watching romance movies late at night. Danielle, on the other hand, was the star of every room she walked into. She had this effortless confidence, the kind that made people gravitate toward her. Teachers adored her. Boys lined up for her attention. And for as long as I can remember, she made sure I knew it. "Why do you always wear boring clothes?" she'd say in front of my friends. Or, "You'll never get a guy if you keep hiding behind those glasses." Little comments that stung more than I ever let on. But it wasn't just the words, it was the way she carried herself, like everything was a competition. If I got an A on a test, she had to show off her A+. If a friend complimented my hair, she'd find a way to outshine me at the very next event. My whole childhood was lived in her shadow, and for the most part, I let it slide. When I met Alex, my now husband, things shifted. For the first time, someone saw me. Not as Danielle's little sister. Not as the quiet one. Just me. And he loved me for it. Our relationship grew fast, and within 2 years, he proposed. I was over the moon. But from the very first moment I announced the engagement, I could see that glint in Danielle's eyes, the one that said she wasn't happy being on the sidelines. "Oh, wow," she said at the family dinner where we shared the news. "Engaged already? Don't you think that's a little fast?" Her tone was sugar-coated, but the message was sharp. It didn't stop there. Every step of the wedding planning, she found a way to needle me. The guest list. The flowers. Even the food tasting. "Are you sure salmon is a safe choice? People might think it's cheap." She always had an opinion, always phrased in that helpful but undermining tone that made me feel like a little girl again. The one part of the planning I kept sacred, though, was my dress. From the moment I was a teenager, I dreamed about the perfect gown. Something elegant, but not over the top. A dress that would make me feel beautiful without screaming for attention. I knew this was my moment, not Danielle's. At least, that's what I thought. When the day for my final fitting arrived, Danielle insisted on coming along. "Of course I have to be there," she said. "I'm your sister. I want to see you look gorgeous." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her smile felt rehearsed, like she was already planning something. Still, I brushed it off, because what kind of sister would sabotage her sibling's wedding dress, right? Little did I know, that's exactly what she intended to do. The bridal boutique smelled faintly of roses and fabric starch, the kind of place where everything felt delicate and untouchable. My dress had just come back from final alterations. I'd been waiting weeks for this moment, slipping into it, standing in front of those mirrors, seeing the future me who would walk down the aisle. The consultant, a sweet older woman named Marla, brought the gown out carefully. It was wrapped in clear protective plastic, pinned neatly at the seams. My heart skipped when I saw it. My dress. The lace sleeves, the soft ivory satin, it was everything I had pictured since I was a girl. "But Danielle?" She smirked. "Oh, that's the one you picked?" Her voice was just loud enough for the other customers in the boutique to hear. "I mean, it's nice, but don't you think it's a little plain?" Marla shot her a look that could cut glass. But I ignored her. I wasn't going to let Danielle's commentary ruin this. When I stepped into the dressing room and slipped the gown on, I felt transformed. For once, I didn't feel like the quiet little sister. I felt radiant. I stepped out, the fabric catching the light, and Alex's mother, who had come along too, gasped. "You look stunning, dear." Danielle clapped slowly, mockingly. "Yeah, it's cute. But you know what would really pop? Something tighter. Flashier. More modern. You don't want to look matronly on your big day." Her words stung, but I stayed quiet. This was my dress. My choice. What I didn't know was that while I was changing back into my clothes, Danielle was busy. When I returned to the fitting room, she had lingered by the rack. By the time I came out again, the dress was already back in the garment bag. Everything looked normal. I didn't suspect a thing. Fast forward to the morning of the wedding. My stomach fluttered with excitement. The room buzzed with bridesmaids, hairsprays hissing, perfume clouds filling the air. My dress hung by the window in its bag, sunlight glowing behind it like a halo. When I finally unzipped the bag, my breath caught. At first, I thought maybe my nerves were playing tricks. But as the fabric slid free, I knew. This wasn't my dress. The lace was gone. The ivory satin replaced with a garish, skin-tight gown that looked like it belonged in a nightclub, not a wedding. Sequins glittered across the bodice. The neckline plunged in a way that made me blush just looking at it. And the hemline? So short, I could never walk down an aisle without scandalizing half the family. What is this? My voice cracked. The bridesmaids gathered, gasping. One of them whispered, "That's not the dress you picked, is it?" Panic surged through me. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. My big day. The most important day of my life. And here I was, staring at a stranger's gown. Then the door creaked. Danielle strolled in, sipping a mimosa, her own bridesmaid dress flowing effortlessly behind her. When she saw me holding the sequined monstrosity, her lips curled into the faintest smile. "Oh no," she said in mock horror. "That's terrible. Did the boutique make a mistake?" Her eyes glimmered. Something inside me clicked. The smugness in her voice. The exact kind of dress she'd always said I should wear, flashy, tight, modern. This wasn't a mistake. This was her. For a moment, I froze. Every instinct told me to scream, to cry, to fall apart. But instead, I went quiet. My bridesmaids looked at me, waiting for a meltdown. But in that silence, a thought came to me. If Danielle wanted a show, then maybe it was time I gave her one. The room spun for a moment as I held that sequin-covered disaster in my hands. My bridesmaids whispered behind me, already pulling out their phones to call the boutique. But I stopped them. "No," I said quietly. My voice surprised even me, calm, steady, unlike the chaos I felt inside. "Don't call anyone. Not yet." Because as much as I wanted to believe in coincidences, I knew Danielle. I knew the curve of that smirk, the satisfaction hidden in her eyes. She had planned this. She wanted me to wear something humiliating, something that would make people whisper during the vows, something that would etch her fingerprints all over my day. And suddenly, I didn't want to cry anymore. I wanted to outplay her. While my bridesmaids panicked, I asked for just a few minutes alone. Once the door shut, I pulled out my phone and dialed Marla, the boutique consultant. "Sweetheart," she said, recognizing my voice instantly. "Is everything all right?" "No," I whispered. "I think my dress was switched. The wrong gown is here. Please tell me you still have mine." There was a pause. Then Marla's voice softened. "I wondered why the bag felt heavier than usual when your sister returned it last week." I should have said something. "Don't worry, I still have your gown here. Clean, pressed, and waiting." Relief flooded through me so hard I almost collapsed. The problem? The boutique was 30 minutes away, and I had less than 2 hours before walking down the aisle. I took a deep breath. "Marla, I need a favor." Without hesitation, she agreed to drive the gown herself. But in those next 2 hours, as the wedding preparations whirled around me, another thought began to take root. It wasn't enough just to fix this. I wanted Danielle to feel the weight of what she had tried to do, to see her own plan unravel in front of everyone. So, I set the pieces in motion. I instructed my bridesmaids to keep quiet. "Pretend everything's fine," I told them. "Don't say a word about the dress." They exchanged worried glances, but trusted me. Then I asked the photographer, a close friend of mine, for a special favor. "When Danielle comes to check on me later, pretend you want a few candid shots of the bridesmaids helping me into the gown. Make sure she gets a clear look." The idea was simple. Let Danielle believe I was about to wear the sequin disaster down the aisle. Let her bask in the glory of her little sabotage. And then, flip the script. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, Danielle breezed into the bridal suite again. "How's my beautiful bride?" she cooed, eyes darting immediately to the garment bag. The photographer lifted his camera. Click, click, flash. My bridesmaids played their part perfectly, draping the sequin gown against me as if helping me step in. Danielle's grin widened, satisfaction dripping from every inch of her expression. She thought she had won. What she didn't know was that, at that very moment, Marla was racing across town with my real gown in the back seat of her car. By the time Danielle left the room, convinced her little plan had succeeded, I felt my nerves settle into something I hadn't felt in years. Power. For once, I wasn't the little sister being overshadowed. I was the one pulling the strings. And when Marla finally arrived, carrying the gown like a sacred treasure, I almost cried with gratitude. The dress slipped over me like it had been waiting all along, hugging my frame, shimmering softly under the light. This was me. The real me. And Danielle? She was about to learn what it felt like to be on the other side of humiliation. Because as the ceremony drew closer, I told the photographer one more thing. When she sees me at the aisle, in this dress, not the one she planted, make sure you catch her face. The church bells began to ring, deep and steady, echoing through the air. Guests shuffled into their pews, the soft murmur of voices blending with the strings of a quartet playing near the altar. I waited just outside, hidden from view, my heart pounding against the corset of my gown. My father stood beside me, beaming with pride, unaware of the drama that had unfolded just hours before. Inside, the bridesmaids were already walking down the aisle, one by one, satin dresses gliding over polished marble. Danielle was near the front of the line, her posture perfect, her smile dazzling. To everyone else, she looked like the picture of sisterly joy. But I could see it. The smug flicker in her eyes. She thought she'd won. The music swelled. My cue. When the doors opened, light poured into the church, catching the ivory fabric of my real gown. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. My father's hand tightened around mine as we began the slow walk forward. For a moment, all I heard was the rustle of my dress, the music, and my own heartbeat. Then I saw her. Danielle, standing near the altar, bouquet in hand. Her expression froze. The smile faltered. Her eyes widened. And then, just as I had asked, the photographer snapped a burst of photos, capturing every flicker of shock, every second her plan unraveled before her. She had expected sequins. She had expected humiliation. Instead, she saw me radiant, confident, untouchable, in the gown she had tried to steal from me. I kept my eyes forward, but inside, I savored the moment. Every step down that aisle was a reclamation. Every gasp from the audience was proof that this day was mine, not hers. Alex's eyes filled with tears as he saw me. And behind him, I caught sight of his mother whispering to a relative, pointing at me with pride. There wasn't a single whisper of scandal, only awe. But Danielle? She couldn't hide it. The color drained from her face. Her grip on the bouquet tightened until her knuckles turned white. At one point, she even glanced down at her own dress, as if to reassure herself she was still presentable. But it didn't matter. Everyone had seen. Everyone had noticed. Because in that moment, she wasn't the star of the room. She was the spectator to a scene she had tried to sabotage. As I reached the altar, Alex leaned close and whispered, "You look perfect." His words steadied me. They were the final confirmation that no one, not even Danielle, could take this away. The ceremony began. The priest spoke, the vows were exchanged, and the room filled with warmth and joy. But every so often, I caught Danielle's reflection in the corner of my eye. She wasn't smiling anymore. She wasn't glowing. She looked small, diminished. And when it came time for the photos afterward, I made sure she was right beside me in one particular shot, the one where my gown shimmered in the light, and her face still carried that flicker of disbelief. That picture? It became my favorite from the entire day. Not because I looked beautiful, though I did, but because, for once in my life, Danielle wasn't the one in control. The reception hall sparkled with fairy lights and flowers, a dreamy contrast to the tension that had quietly simmered all morning. Guests laughed, clinking glasses, while servers weaved between tables carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. For me, the ceremony was done. The hardest part was behind me. I was married, finally, to the man I loved. The music, the laughter, the warmth of family and friends, it was everything I had hoped for. But of course, there was still Danielle. She stayed close to the bridesmaids, her smile plastered on, but the cracks were beginning to show. Every so often, I noticed guests leaning toward her, whispering. Some glanced at me, then at her, as though comparing us. As though silently asking themselves, what happened? I didn't need to spell it out. They had eyes. They had seen her face at the church, the way her confidence had crumbled. Her little game wasn't a secret anymore, it was an open wound she couldn't cover. During the speeches, my maid of honor told a funny story about me in college, and everyone burst into laughter. I glanced over at Danielle. Her laugh came a beat too late, her eyes a little too sharp. For once, she wasn't the center of attention. She wasn't the star. The moment that sealed it came during the first dance. Alex and I swayed beneath the lights, the song carrying us in a bubble of joy. And when the crowd erupted in applause, I saw Danielle slip away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, bouquet abandoned on a chair. She didn't stay long after that. By the time dessert was served, she was gone. And you know what? I didn't miss her. For years, I had let Danielle's shadow stretch over me, dictating how I felt about myself, how I carried myself. But that night, under the glow of candles and the sparkle of chandeliers, I finally realized something. Her power over me only existed because I allowed it. When I stopped playing her game, when I chose to walk into that church with my head high, I took it back. The rest of the night was everything I wanted it to be. My family danced until their feet hurt, Alex kissed me under the stars, and when I finally collapsed into bed that night, dress tossed across a chair, I felt lighter than I had in years. Danielle's plan hadn't ruined me. It had revealed her. And me? I finally saw myself for who I really was, not the quiet sister, not the overlooked shadow, but a woman who could rise above the pettiness, stand her ground, and shine when it mattered most. That wedding photo, the one of Danielle standing right beside me, her face twisted in disbelief, still hangs in my home. Not as a trophy, not as a reminder of her failure, but as proof that no matter who tries to dim your light, it will always find a way to shine through.